I've never heard of a podcast before. It sounds like orc trickery.
It certainly is. I'm sorry. I'll just go. Should I put down this axe?
Axe, fire, all the weapons that kill my kin.
Well, we're starting off with a very harsh energy. Welcome to Finding Monster Right.
Is that the show that finds monsters, right?
Right. I'm Allie.
I'm Adam.
Harum.
Yes, no, we are delving deep into a new month of celebration on our show. Septimber.
Do you remember? Well, specifically, you know what? I don't know about this month, Adam.
Oh, you don't think so?
Yeah, in fact, why don't you just oak me up when September ends? I didn't kill Treebeard's wife.
Another one of our dense episode titles. September is the celebration of plant-based monsters.
We don't do those often enough.
It's a green day here on Finding Monster Rights. As we're talking about Ents.
We're also talking about entwives.
Right. So, you might recognize the name Ents from J. Rolkin Tolkien.
Rolkin Tolkien.
Yeah, double Rolkins. I'm sorry, I didn't multiply correctly.
You are incorrect!
Lord of the Rings, it's the Treebeard and his posse.
Yeah.
It's the Fangorn friends.
Fangorn and his posse, even.
Yeah, yes, because one of Treebeard's names is Fangorn.
Yes, that is his proper name, and Treebeard is in translation of that in Elvish. Because, and let's get into, I guess this is origin of the Screamies?
It can't be anything else. I would say that Ents are very frightening. That's the first thing that happens to Merry and Pippin. They're like, oh god, what the fuck?
Yeah, Ents are very frightening. And they have been frightening since they were created.
Tell us the conditions that came to be.
So, they made Jolkin read Macbeth, and he thought that, like, when the woods came to Dunsinane, like, that prophecy was going to be like, tree people. And then it was like, no, not really. It's a joke. I'm Shakespeare. And then he was like, that's dumb, and he put tree people in his story. That's the whole bit. Second off.
Which is, I have to say, I relate to that incredibly. like, whenever I see, like, a fantastical explanation is always my brain's fill in the blank. When I see that, I'm usually disappointed otherwise.
Yeah. In a story that already has fantasy elements, but it was old-timey times, and they didn't know that, like, that it was fantasy elements when they were like, oh yeah, God and stuff. No, Hecate's real, and worshipping her is bad.
It's a good point that he, I can see why he would feel a little cheated. Because so far there's been witches and spells and prophecies. And then it's like, no. It's real cheese, you silly goose.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Within fiction, Manwë, I believe. I think that's right.
It's Manwë or the highway.
Yes. Manwë created the dwarves in secret, and then Eru Iluvatar, who is like the Christian god. That's who he is.
Mm-hmm.
The Christian god permits this trespass by one of his lesser gods. Of like, all right, fine, we can still have dwarves. That's okay, I guess. They're pretty neat, but you really should have asked me first.
A cool god.
Yavanna, another one of the Valar, was like, hey, so these dwarves that you let in, yeah? They like axes, huh? Yeah.
Oh yeah, their favorite thing.
Could I maybe make some...
They love hammers too, equally axes and hammers. They're choppy boys.
Could I maybe make some tree people to help keep my trees safe? Because, like, I'm in charge of trees, and, like, I don't want the trees to get fucked up too bad. Please, God, thank you. And God was like, yeah, okay, but, like, fuck, this is why I didn't want to do it in the first place. Like, it's just going to make more guys. Like, I'm just going to have to keep making guys now.
I said only guys.
Right, that is a good point. So, that's how they made the Ents. She awoke some of the trees and created the shepherds of the forest to shepherd the forests about. The male Ents were dedicated to Orome, and who is the huntsman of the Valar. And the female Ents, the entwives, were dedicated to Yavanna herself.
The male Ents took care of the big trees, while the entwives like the little tiny forests and brushes.
You know what? Ent husbands.
I guess that's fair. Ent husbands.
Get in formation, ladies.
Ent hubbies.
Oh, that's worse.
That's bad. Okay.
I've never liked the word hubby. It feels like something that a talking hippopotamus would call someone.
I think I'm against any kind of abbreviations that's just the word with a Y at the end. Like wifey. I don't. That's not. You didn't make this cuter.
Those are some uncomfy vibes, yeah. So the Ent husbands and the Ent wives, they wound up having a bit of a disagreement because, like, the Ent husbands were all like, "We love trees," and the Ent wives were all like, "We love smaller things like gardens and flowers and crops and stuff, I bet." And so they kind of went their separate ways, and the Entwives had their own little garden over in the corner of this huge forest that spread across most of Eriador, which is like most of the land in current-day Middle-earth. And
it was pretty much everything. As Elrond said, time was once when a squirrel could carry a nut from tree to tree, from Rivendell to the Great Sea.
Time was once that a squirrel could bust a nut from Rivendell and reach the Great Sea. Dad, that's not what bust a nut means. Oh? And what does it mean, then? Never mind, Father. I
now know why there are so few elves.
Oh, God. I was playing that like Elrond knew and was just trying to call Arwen out on. Like, oh, I'm sorry. We've been pronouncing all these names wrong. So let me correct myself. Treebeard, Eriador, Arwen, Elrond. I think that covers it.
But do go on. There was once a great forest that spanned this area. The Ents are like, it's fine if the Entwives are over there. We'll visit them at some point.
Rip. Yeah, the Númenóreans, who are like the Númenóreans, who are like this ancient people that...
You're like the fat guy who sings the song, right?
Yeah. Wow. Jeez. Talk about throwbacks to the first age. Like...
Treebeard remembered that joke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good point. The Ents are immortal and, like, spirit-like in being. So, Treebeard is, like, Galadriel and her husband called Treebeard eldest.
Hmm?
He and Tom Bombadil are, like, the two oldest guys in Middle-earth. He calls Gandalf Young Master Gandalf. Like...
Yes, no, I think it's great that you... Thank you for including Tom Bombadil. A character who I cannot believe has not entered our radar in the course of this series thus far.
Oh my gosh, you're right. But
which is just incredible that this little piece of like I love how much like Tolkien nerds hate Bombi.
What happened to
a lot of them are like, no, this is fucking serious.
You know,
this is some.
I don't know about making a nickname out of something by just adding a Y. Like, you're not cute.
Fair point, very fair.
Anyway, so
but yeah, this fucking clown.
I'm done talking about Tom Bombadil for right now.
Right.
I want to continue
okay.
so we can get to the episode.
Please.
So, the Numenorians deforest a lot of this giant forest, and it's also just ravaged during the war at the end of the First Age, where they kill Morgoth and all that. And what's left is the forest that we currently know as Fangorn, and it is separated by a bit of unforested land and the river Anduin from the gardens of the Entwives. Then, during the War of the Last Alliance, when Sauron is eventually overthrown, leading to the ring getting lost and all that, during that war, he does just kind of send his orcs up, and they just burn down all of the gardens of the Entwives as part of like a scorched earth policy thing. And after all that unpleasantness happens, the Ents wander into the lands where the Entwives once were, and they see that they are arid moors that are now called the Brown Lands. It's just a lot of dry, wet places. Arid moors is the word that is used, and I don't think I know what moors means. I thought it was like a swamp.
Yeah, that's how I understood it too.
Well,
I think it's like the patchy part of the beginning of Macbeth.
Oh yeah, well the misty moors, like they're not always swamps, or are they? I don't know. I'll need to ask Jane Austen where she gets all of her.
I suggest you learn more.
God, this episode is just us like dunking each other into basketball nets over and over and over again in sequence.
Which is fine. That's I think Ents are used to these kinds of nonsense. They originally didn't speak much.
No.
If you recall.
Yeah, the elves had to teach them to speak, which was a great and tremendous gift. Harum.
Although they were immediately annoyed by how much the elves spoke.
Yes, the Ents speak very slowly. So, they find the gardens of the Entwives ruined and abandoned. And when Treebeard is relating this story to Merry and Pippin, he says the following quote.
Long we called, and long we searched, and we asked all folks that we met which way the Entwives had gone. Some say they had never seen them, and some said that they had seen them walking away west, and some said east, and others south. But nowhere that we went could we find them. Our sorrow was very great, yet the wildwood cold. And we returned to it. For many years we used to go out every now and again and look for the Entwives, walking far and wide and calling them by their beautiful names. But as time passed, we went more seldom and wandered less far. And now the Entwives are only a memory for us, and our beards are long and gray.
Which, the first time I read that quote when I was looking up quotes, I did fully cry about it.
Oh, it's an absolute tragedy.
Like, all their wives are dead. It's sad. They all died. Well,
they're all lost.
Yes. It is very silly, though, that it's like, some say they saw them going west, some said east, some said south, and some said they'd never seen them. We just kind of believed all of them, and then we went back home, because the wildwood was calling, you know? The game was on.
Saturdays are for the boys. And I suppose Sunday as well. Mondays, too. Tuesdays also, now that I think about it. Thursdays, I don't care about you. Fridays. I'm also not looking at trees. I don't sing very well.
In the McElroy's book, the on podcasting that I read, they said to try standing energy, and I feel like this is the episode for it. I've got enough space in the booth to just kind of like, boom, you know?
Yeah, Treebeard is notorious for getting up and moving around. Despite his tendencies to stay put for long periods of time.
But not very quickly, because he does... it does take the Ents forever to say anything.
Yes, as you may have noticed from this recent quote.
Yes.
They're very slow, like trees, and they take their time. They've become more tree-ish over the ages, and many have returned back to just being straight-up trees.
Which is so scary.
Yeah, no, I would hate that fate.
I'd also hate being a tree. Yeah, sure.
Did you learn about the other ent-like beings of Middle-earth?
I did, yes.
The Hjorns.
The Hjorns, which are only mentioned once after Treebeard and the other Ents and the other Ent hubbies kill. They take over. They kill a bunch of orcs at Orthanc, and then they flood the place.
Mm-hmm.
They hold Saruman captive. They hold Saruman captive for a while. And they hold him captive for a while until, in the books, they take pity on him and let him go, I guess. And in the movies, in the extended edition, he's talking with Gandalf, and Brad Dourif pushes him off a tower, and he gets stabbed on a wheel.
Yeah, what they say to Gandalf is like,
I figured him a snake without his fangs.
And Gandalf's all, that snake had one fang left. Hence the scourging of the Shire.
Yes. Yeah. That was a whole...
It's kind of sad that's a domino that Treebeard and his ilk knocked into place. One of the Hjorn is believed to be Old Man Willow from Fellowship.
Yes. Who Tom Bombadil has a bit of an interaction with.
Correct. Old Man Willow casts a spell on several of the hobbits. And it's Tom Bombadil that comes to their aid.
Tommy Bomb. The Royal Tommy Bomb. The Royal Tommy Bomb.
The Royal Tommy Bomb.
There we go. We found it.
Yeah. No. Thomas Bombus is right there to help him out.
They call me Mr. Bombadil Telephantadil.
Man, So the Ents are that's their kind of sad tale. They're not mentioned after that kind of passage, and it's I guess it's assumed that. Do you think things get better for the Ents after the events of Lord of the Rings?
Well, after...
Or do you think they're kind of stuck in this cycle?
Well, after the war is won and all that, the Ents don't take place in the Battle of Pelennor Fields or anything like that, or like the Battle at the Gates of Mount Doom. They stay at Orthanc and create the Treegarth at Orthanc, which is a beautiful garden, which is kind of the Entwives' whole deal, is they're not into big trees, they're into gardens and crops and small, beautiful flowers and agriculture and all that. They taught agriculture to men, which is why men were, so reverent of the Entwives. So,
right.
I have several theories.
As to what ultimately befell the Entwives?
One of them, let's keep it in the Tom Bombadil family of products here.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Old Man Willow the Hjorn? Yes, you are. You just talked about him.
Yes, I am.
Now, does the presence of a Hjorn in the area near the Shire, does that shock you at all?
There's not a lot of big talking trees in the Shire.
There is one.
Yeah, I think there was a mention of some large tree creature walking around, right?
Yes, Samwise picks up a rumor at one point that a tree had been seen walking around near the Shire at some point. It's just like a rumor that's floating around. what is fascinating about that is the Shire is in Eriador, and it could be that there's a relict population of Ents or entwives from the point when all of Eriador was huge forested land, when the squirrel was busting a nut across the trees, and bussing a nut. No, that's not better.
No.
Like carrying it?
Just because the kids say it doesn't mean it works.
No, that's something else. Okay. But it could be that there's another relict population, much as Fangorn, the forest, is a relict of this greater forest. Maybe there's some relict populations, some primeval forest, as it were, around the Shire, where entwives still linger. Furthermore, what do we know about Tom Bombadil's wife?
The most stuff I know about him is the color of his coat and his boots. Tell me about his wife.
Although her origins are uncertain, it has been speculated that she is a river spirit of the river Withywindle. Otherwise, she and Bombadil are enigmas. Other nicknames, the River Daughter, location the Old Forest. So, the Old Forest. It's literally called the Old Forest.
That's very interesting.
It's literally called the Old Forest where they are. So, if she's just the River Daughter, you know what is the daughter of a river? Plants, crops, things that grow.
Yeah, it sounds like a full, was it Entling in action? Started from a sea, now they're here?
I think she might be an Entwife, and I think that, I mean, there's no age difference. If Tom Bombadil and Treebeard are the two old... Sorry, Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, I can't understand your Elvish.
I'd be so good in Middle-earth. Like, they wouldn't know what I was saying because I was speaking English instead of Western. But then I'd just be like, the next portal to Bikini Bottom. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't say so. Next Isekai Mary Sue portal closes in 5 seconds.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about... The thing about Tom Bombadil is that all the rules are out the window. He fucking just holds the ring, and he's like, this doesn't work on me.
Yeah.
Something that by all, like, conceivable logic of the universe, shouldn't happen.
So,
but no, I fully... nothing surprised me about him. If his wife's an Ent, by all means.
An Entwife, specifically. My second theory is that the Entwives went north into the forest.
Is that the direction that was not mentioned to Treebeard?
Yes, Treebeard was like, some of them said they went west, some said east, some south, and some said they didn't see them at all, so we gave up. Like, there's a fourth one. Mr. Beard, there is a third one. Mr. Gorn, there's a third one. I'm sorry. Like,
well, first, to be fair, he might not know what a compass is. He might not know that there's 4 cardinal directions. He could think that he was traveling from the north, and it's like, oh well, they're not all this way. So go on.
That is an interesting point. So the forest of Greenwood, later known during the Third Age as Mirkwood.
Handy map. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, with the big old spiders in it.
With the big old spiders in it. Bilbo and
the
dwarves.
elves, the forest elves.
Yeah, Bilbo and the dwarves make their way through it in The Hobbit. I don't believe it makes an appearance in Loder itself. Yeah, no, if King Thranduil's realm... I didn't even try that time. If King Thranduil's realm of Mirkwood, later Greenwood, after the Mirk is gone, because the Mirk does come from Sauron.
Yeah, right.
If they fled the destruction of the Entwives' gardens and the creation of the Brownlands and went north into Greenwood, and then that forest was corrupted into Mirkwood, do we get some, like, unseelie, dark Entwives?
I think it's a very interesting idea, because there's all kinds of crazy nonsense in those woods, just as is. Like, you can't, like, wander off the path, or else you'll be lost in a magical way. Probably one of the hardest forests to get through in fiction. I have to say.
That feels real. That feels realistic to me.
And looking at a map here, the Mirkwood like dwarfs a Fangorn forest like maybe like 3 times as big, 4 times.
Absolutely.
If they didn't even look up there, I think it's totally possible that that's a hiding spot. It's really the Brownlands is closer to Mirkwood Forest than it is to Fangorn Forest.
Yeah. And also, like, if no one's seen all of Mirkwood yet, maybe there's a coelacanth in there. We don't know.
It's also, if I recall from the Hobbits, there's a lot of valleys and stuff in the forest, where so sometimes it's hard to perceive how large it is. I could see them struggling from the Brownlands to see that all just in the distance is a forest over there.
Now, the hole in this theory, and maybe this is the reason why Treebeard and the other husbands didn't think to look up there. The Entwives didn't like the forest. The Ent husbands did. So is it possible
you think
they
that
thought
maybe? Yeah, I see where you're going.
Yeah, do you think it's possible that maybe they thought of the forest as a barrier rather than something the Entwives could have gone into? And would the Entwives have gone into it in the first place? I think if they're fleeing, it doesn't really matter where they're fleeing to. You know, they'll make do.
Yeah, I think it might be the ultimate like miscommunication here in this marriage of sorts. Because like that's an old like boomer adage. You ever hear that one?
No.
Like when a husband and wife get married, the husband thinks that the wife will stay the same, and the wife changes. And the wife thinks that the husband will change, but he stays the same. Maybe that's like the kind of thing that's going on here, where it's like the Entwives decided like, no. Maybe, like, the forest seems to be the only place where, like, plant life, like, flourishes here. These lands have been, like, burned and ruined, and I don't want to even look at, like, little flowers and foliage anymore. I want the big stuff. And so maybe they changed their tone and did something that the Fangorn and its friends, like, wouldn't have conceived of. That they turned and kind of converted to the forest life.
But that itself is kind of a trap, because if you flee into Greenwood before it's corrupted, because you're running away from Sauron's desolation, and then Sauron's influence as the necromancer, after he's defeated, corrupts Greenwood into Mirkwood, and you get corrupted anyway, whoopsie-doo.
Yeah, you thought it was safe, but it's not. And yeah, I think post that, they'd be very, very upset that their initial instincts about the forest were correct.
Which is classic Sauron.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
but, the Mirkwood as is, like it's you stray off the path and you get lost. I could see them in more ways than one getting lost right up there nearby.
Yeah, and with the repurification of Mirkwood into Greenwood again after Sauron's finally defeated, maybe those dark Entwives become not as dark Entwives. Maybe like
no, it's one of the missing like 12 endings of Return of the King, like ones that just a bunch of Entwives come out of the forest.
Yeah, and this kind of blurring of the line here, where like the Entwives decide, okay, we can't do the fields and gardens anymore. Let's go into the forest, which is more of like an Ent husband thing. That is an interesting transition into my final theory here. Adam,
go on.
Are you familiar with the term monoecious?
I don't. I'm not fully familiar, but I think that you dropped a hint with the word transition.
Well, seatbelts, everyone. We're going inside a tree, bitch. That's how Miss Frizzle should start every.
That's her little-known second catchphrase.
Yeah, we're going inside a tree, bitch. Miss Frizzle, we're learning how to make a cake. That's not even accurate. I'm uncomfortable. Anyway, so, first off, thing you gotta know about trees. Biggest thing about trees is that trees have evolved like a bajillion times. At least twice that we know of. Because you got conifers and you got like...
That was also Treebeard's catchphrase. Go on.
You got like conifers and like pines and evergreens and stuff, and then you have like the flowering plants like, maple and oak and broadleaf trees and all that. And then like between those, like sometimes a plant just gets big and woody. That just happens. Like carcinization
They evolve.
Yeah. Carcinization is an example that gets brought up a lot on like, pop science articles of like, why does science say everything turns into crab? And like, that's not, there's so many better examples of that same thing happening that don't make as good of a punchline on XKCD.
Of course.
And one of those is trees. And so different kinds of trees have different means of reproduction. Because if you are a sessile organism like a plant, you can't just fuck another tree. That's not how anything works.
Right. It sounds like we're in a kind of a Jurassic Park territory here.
A little bit, yeah. There are 4 primary sexual systems in plants and in trees specifically. They are cosexual, monoecious, dioecious, and polygamous. A cosexual tree is a tree that produces a flower with fully functional male and female parts, which historically was called a perfect flower, which is a great description of intersex people. For my intersex family in the LGBTQIA2++ community. Then you have, I feel like you laughed at that, like that wasn't the full acronym. It is. There's a 2 in there, I promise.
Yeah, no, yeah, for 2 spirits.
Yeah, for 2 spirit
I know
people.
a thing or 2.
Yeah, you've learned. We've grown, just like trees. Just like a monoecious tree, even. A monoecious tree separates...
I'm just mad that they took a number. It was all letters before they showed up.
Sometimes it's 2S, or sometimes it's even TS, but like, I like a 2.
I've seen the 2S at the beginning of the acronym before, and that's it's kind of like, all right, you can't just join at the top of the party, gang.
Secret here is some people use GSM, gender and sexual minorities. It's a bit shorter.
Mm-hmm.
That works too. You can also just say queer.
I like that branding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can also just say queer. It's been retaken. Actually, I don't know if you can. I'm not sure. You know what? This is a debate. We're not talking about this. We're talking about trees. Monoecious trees separate male and female parts into different flowers or cones on the same tree. Fir, birch, hickory, pecan, chestnut, cedar, hazel, beech, walnut, sweet gum, white cedar, and hemlock are examples of monoecious trees. And you got dioecious trees that have male and female parts on completely different trees. And then you have polygamous trees that just have cosexual male and female flowers on all of them in different ratios. So, a treebeard is described as looking like a beech or an oak, both of which are monoecious trees, meaning that Treebeard and other Ents within his group should have fully functional male and female parts in each of the flowers that they use to reproduce with, meaning the entwives are within the Ents themselves. The search for the entwives is a search of self-discovery and gender identity and stuff in a way that the very Catholic Tolkien definitely intended and wanted to explore.
It was his interpretation. So you think that the entwives are really like an internal hidden part of the Ents?
Yes. I think if the Ents tried to reproduce among themselves, they could do it. Because they... Like, these are not dioecious trees. They produce... Like, they're not all male or all female. They are a mix of both, like many plants are. So I don't see why an enting couldn't...
Perhaps the... Yeah, I could see that the... Maybe... And, I do not have the memory of a Treebeard. But perhaps, like, back then, the Ent husbands and the Entwives were just 2 different factions of sorts. And they just believed in different things. One like trees, one like flowers. It's been that way for so long that it was like, oh no, our wives, they're gone. We can't reproduce without them. When reality, it's a forgotten or lost traits of themselves.
You know what? Maybe this is a good way of describing... Maybe that's a difference between sex and gender. liking trees versus liking plants and flowers and stuff, those are just gender roles. But in reality, there's no biological difference between Ents and entwives.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Although if all the Ents identify as male, then, like, that's it for the entwives, yeah?
Yeah, that might be what the problem that they've run into is.
Well,
Because, Treebeard's, he's very male in his presentation and identity.
Certainly,
so
yes.
is Quick Beam. We haven't talked about Quick Beam, who I wanted to mention.
What is this Ben 10 character that you brought up?
It's one of the younger Ents, who's kind of like in middle age in Middle Earth, and he was once upon a time. He interrupted one of his elders' questions before he had finished answering it. A speed that is so renowned to Ents that he became known from then on as Quick Beam.
Quick Beam, the podcasting tree.
Or also Brigalad.
I tried to do the Treebeard thing and the thing at the same time, and it came out as Ray Romano.
When they're having their Ents, what's it called? Powwow? Their Ent gathering?
Their Ent moots.
Ent moots, yes.
Ent
goofier than anything I pitched. Yeah, when they're having their Ent moots, Treebeard's like, Merry and Pippin, hang out with Quick Beam. He's already made up his mind. He doesn't need the time. He's ready to go to war. He doesn't have to participate in the moots.
That rules.
So,
fun fact: Ents are the source of 2 of my mnemonic devices that I use when I'm mixing up entomology and etymology. Etymology is the study of words, entomology is the study of bugs, because Ents are like trees are like nature, bugs are in nature, words aren't. And then moot, like a moot point is a debatable one, because the Ent moot is a meeting and a debate. So moot does not mean, like, we can't argue it, it means you very much can argue it.
Right. And it's a very much, and it was an argument across 3 days.
From February 30th to March 2nd, I think it is. Like, February...
Yeah.
Jolkin really, like, gave the months the same name and then made the calendar different. Jolkin's like, it has to be every month has 30 days. And it's like, because that's every fucking... Whenever you're making a con world and you need a calendar, like, that's the first thing you do. Is like, okay, let's make the calendar fit the stars and shit.
Right. No, that's I'm fully in agreement with that mindset. I believe Robert Jordan does the same thing in the Wheel of Time series. Where he's just like, look, we're just gonna make it real easy here. But I think he does rename the months in his canon. I'm not in favor of that in fantasy worlds, honestly. The messy calendar that we have is something that's real, that speaks to our very realistic world building of the real world. No, I like that it's all fucked up. I like that one has like 2 to 3 less days than all the others, and they're arranged in some weird knuckle pattern. Like, I'm all in favor of it, and it jumps languages. There's missing months that have been lost through time. Did you know about this?
I didn't, no.
One sec. I think it's the difference between the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar.
Well, there's like Quintilis and Sextilis, I think, right? Because I know that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I know that July is named after Julius Caesar, and August is named after Augustus Caesar, and so those months couldn't have happened before those guys were a thing.
Many of these trees were my friends, creatures I had known from naught.
Fucking hell.
You okay?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find out what that... What the... okay, I've just found, like, several accounts about 13th month. There's Sol, which happens in the summer in some groups. There's Undecember.
Fuck off. No way.
Which is, also known as Duodecember.
No. What? Absolutely not. There can't just be another one.
Yeah.
The Earth goes around the sun in a certain amount of moons. That's how months does.
No, I think it has to do with like the way that you count some days, and there's some crazy timings.
Here's a thought.
But yeah, no,
Here's a thought. A year is how long it takes the Earth to go around the sun. A month is, the time between full moons, but also kind of, sort of, not really. A week is just something we made up.
Oh.
Like, it doesn't have to be 7 days. There's no reason for that at all. Why do the days have different names? Wait, hold up.
The names...
Why do the letters
the
of the
names are
alphabet...
also all from...
Sorry, go ahead.
All kinds of different, all kinds of different shelves of language is where the names come from. It's like, you get some Norse in there.
Yeah, the sun,
this one's
the
named
moon.
after the moon.
The goddess Tu, Odin, Thor, Freya, Saturn, and and also, why does the alphabet gotta be in that order? Wait, hold up.
Yeah, so I'm very pro junked up calendar.
Yes, okay.
I always strive to do something like a month that's only like 1 day. Like, you can do that. There's no stopping you.
Putting 5 days in between Christmas and New Year's that are just party month, that would be great.
Yeah. I think what inspired this was an episode of Doug in My Childhood. Where they added, there was a villain plan in a Quail Man bits where he wanted to add another day to the weekends. Was the solution. But that is the deepest rabbit hole I will go down.
That is such
so yeah, Quick Beam. No, he's real neat.
Oh god damn it. Fuck. We suck at podcasting. We're still talking about Quick Beam? That was several arbitrarily sized weeks ago.
The total Ben 10 monster. I'm surprised that didn't happen.
Okay. We don't have to spiral this much. What do you think happened to the Entwives?
Of these theories, I think the Mirkwood one really comes to mind. Because there's enough history and mess there that of course they got mixed around. It could be the forest elves that live there, or could be harboring them or know of them, and it's a great guarded secret since their lands were destroyed. And there's a rich. I think there's a lot of potential there. I truly hope that Tolkien did not intend for the ultimate tragedy being that they're lost and gone forever, like some kind of darling Clementine.
That's a boring end to the story, It's
the same thing as the end of the tale, where it's no, then a bunch of them got in a boat and then they went to another age, the elf lands. Please. I never looked up the lore behind the ending of Lord of the Rings. Where do they go? What fun do they have?
They go to the Undying Lands.
Yeah, so I don't think that's the same fate that befell the Entwives.
No, I think I don't think the Entwives all died because the story would simply be bad that way.
Do you know about this partial map image from Tolkien?
No. What do you mean?
In 2017, a Quora user named Pip Willis published a partial image of a map they claimed his father drew and shared with J.R.R. Tolkien. Willis alleges, so you can tell there's a couple of question marks here, that Tolkien wrote on the map, here may be Entwives, in an area on the west bank of the southern bow of the River Carden.
That's way far away from this small portion here, I think.
Yep, so the question, it's a question of, is it canon? Is it, a fan, basically this is a fan question that was once posed to Jolk before his untimely demise. Timely demise, he was an old man.
Yeah.
He was a Treebeard himself. That was posed to him, and it was, lovingly pitched a kind of a softball for, I guess, fandom of that era. It says, perhaps Entwives might be about somewhere on this great big map.
Yeah, it is kind of, that means that canonically it's a non-answer. And the only way to canonically answer that is to create a secondary level of canon, much like, how, and we'll get into this. We got to get into this ASAP, actually. But you know how Shelob can be a hot lady in the video games, but not in the books or the movies?
Yes, I know that.
I feel like that's got to be the level. Like, if there's ever, if they ever explore Middle-earth in, a comic book format or something like that, which I don't think the Tolkien estate would ever let something like that happen because they're so traditional and all that, but, that would be where a canonical answer to where the Entwives went would have to go. It would have to be in comics canon, or it would have to be in, the canon of another video game or another movie or something, or maybe, the Amazon series is going to be like that or whatever. That probably doesn't make sense chronologically.
Sure.
But
I don't think they're concerned about chronology in that series.
Squatchler.
Oh, okay.
Would you date an Entwife? Go. Yes.
No, they're married.
Oh, fuck, that's a great reason. Well, okay. They're married, but I don't see a ring on their finger, mostly because
metal offends us, harum.
Or whatever. But also, they're kind of estranged. It's kind of, I don't think they're exactly married. I think it's kind of it's a long-distance thing that's simply not working. If you don't communicate with your partner for 2 entire ages, I think maybe you might be, common law divorced.
An age is 3,000 years, so... so it's been 6,000 years since they separated.
If you haven't talked to your partner in all of recorded history, that might be a problem.
I guess it's just a spoken marriage then at that point. There's no paper in it.
Well, no, of course there's no paper in it.
Oh, no, get that shit away from me.
Yeah, it's not written anywhere either. they barely speak a language. So going over that hurdle, bleaching that red flag. I think that if it's anything like talking to end husbands, I think the conversation might be a little slow going. I think we might have a nice walk in the park. That would be a fun date opportunity.
That makes sense for them.
But I don't. Yeah, it's kind of like a shepherd of the garden situation. I don't know if the Entwives have a lot else going on. I feel like their life is like their job and spurning their ex-husbands, which sounds a little not fully my jam. So I do not think that the Entwives would get a rose from me, but I would happily give them a bouquet of flowers.
Oh, they would love that.
Actually, I cannot. I think that would be if I was contemplating giving them a rose. They would probably hate the fact that I killed a flower for that gift.
True. For the Squatchelorette, yes, but only a dark Entwife from Mirkwood. You can't deny that that's hot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure. I going on a date with anyone, they show up covered in mist. is a good look.
Instead of a dark lord, you would have a queen, not bark but beautiful and terrible as the dawn.
It sounds like a rap on Treebeard and his family.
I have one last question.
Please.
You said spurning their husbands when you were describing the Entwives. My question is, whose fault is it really? Hang on. I'm going to go for a very feminist folding fan open really quick.
Okay.
Whose fault is it really? I think it's the Ents' fault.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the perspective that they thought they had a big forest for a long time. They didn't know about the wars of man and the like. But they clearly one party left the main forest. That's not usually the party that's in the wrong.
I do think that the Entwives kind of had to adapt and change for the times, and they sort of paid the price for it, didn't they? By leaving, by changing, by enacting change upon this earth. They kind of painted a target on their backs for Sauron, and I think the moral of that story is that the Ents should have followed them. The Ents should have supported their entwives in their pursuit and their change, and I think they were too stuck in their ways. Maybe that's why this curse is happening, where they're becoming tree-ish and certain trees are becoming more entish. It's like the powers that be are kind of saying, like, let's get rid of these Ents, bring in new Ents. We can still have Ents, just not these guys. They've been around for too long. They're getting stale.
Yeah, like I said, it's kind of cyclical in a sense. But I think part of it has to do with the speed and the slowness of the, of the Ents. Because, and this is, the story itself, Lord of the Rings proper, kind of is about spurning them into action. It's about, like, how they've like, Treebeard's friends die because...
These trees were my friends.
Because of Saruman.
Creatures I have known from nuts.
Go on. I'm not going to stop.
Because of how their slow, indecisive nature, that's also why they weren't fast enough to meet the Entwives in time on the other side of the river. If they were, like, not as lackadaisical, they weren't as tree-ish, that they're kind of ironically being converted into, then they might have been reunited with their wives.
Like, the whole going to war and destroying, Sauron's whole encampment there and creating the Treegarth at Orthanc, it kind of, like, creating this tribute to the Entwives, and the whole, like, marching into battle and, like, getting up and, like, doing something and just, like, sinking your claws in deep to right a wrong. Like, this whole action, if the Entwives saw all this happen, I think they would have no choice but to accept it as, like, a grand romantic gesture. And, grand romantic gestures don't mean, like, all is forgiven, but also it can't be argued that that isn't at least a little sweet of the Ents. And I think...
Oh, no, it's a perfect apology.
And the Entwives are the ones that go out into the world and change things, particularly things in the worlds of men, where they introduce agriculture, or in the Treebeards, in the last March of the Ents case, they destroy Orthanc. And it does speak to the whole, like, connecting to the feminine side of the Ents themselves. Because the Entwives they're always depicted, like all fantasy races, as just, like, hot tree ladies, the Entwives are. They're smaller, they're more nimble, they're less, like, slow and creaking and slow to action. They are faster, they change more things, and they create beautiful gardens, which is exactly what the Ents do in Lord of the Rings. In the absence of the feminine gender itself, you kind of need to embrace femininity in that sense. And I think if we take that if, like, we were to take, Lord of the Rings and make it a little more, like, it's a good word for this, like, more queer inclusive, let's say, which is something that I think would make the Tolkien fandom's neck hair bristle quite a bit. But, what fandom isn't toxic? I think that maybe that would be an instance where, like, maybe not Treebeard himself, but certainly some of the Ents would be like, or maybe some of the new Ents that are awakening, we might say, might be more feminine. We might lean towards a reality where, these tree people don't reproduce in exactly the same way as humans do. It's not like Treebeard has a tree dick. So,
right.
We might enter a reality where the Entwives come back causally, rather than it's the same Entwives and they're just coming back again.
Yeah, they're entering into a new age.
Tolkien's is a world where everything gets worse all the time. Everything that was old rules, and everything that is new is bad.
Right.
I don't know how any blacksmith operates in Middle-earth, because it's just like, man, like, 10,000 years ago, some elf made a sword that's better than anything I'll ever make. Why don't I just fucking hang myself?
Let me keep making swords. It's been 9,000 years of making swords. And the only ones that are innovating are the orcs.
Yeah.
With their war machines.
And they're punished for it.
So I see where you're getting at. No, this is like the perfect capstone of the old age and beginning of a new one, where maybe it's a little more fluid, a little more inclusive. It's not just the Ents, but to all the beings of Middle Earth.
Yeah. So we destroyed the gender binary, but for tree people. So that's okay, I guess.
Yeah, no. That's so stupid, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Go for it.
I can't wait to meet... No, I've set up too much. It's too bad.
Say it.
All right, well, as we say goodbye to... No,
Adam, say it.
All right, sorry. As we say goodbye to Tree Queer and Queer Beam... Let's go to the final rating, please.
Holy shit.
You understand why I had to set up like that, right? So it's like, if I said that apropos of nothing, you'd be like, what the fuck? But...
Okay. So what do we think of the entwives and the Ents, rating them?
Separate or together?
Separately. Get granular with this one.
Okay. The entwives, I see a little, like, they've got a little more going on. I like how we've talked about how they changed, how they went out there, how they influenced man, and I think there's a more interesting mystery. Versus the Ents, who are awesome and really cool, and I dig their vibe. If I did have a Lord of the Rings video game to play, I would want to be an Ent. That seems awesome, like a giant hulking tree-like being. They don't have magic though, but they do moots about. So I mean that's neat. I guess I see the approach of a, like, you know. I see the aspects there. I'm going to give the Entwives a 9 out of 10, and the Ents themselves an 8.
I mean, one thing that I'm considering right at now is which one did Tolkien come up with first? Because I'd have to guess it's the Ents. It's kind of like a Michael Bikel situation, you know? Like that Rick and Morty thing. Where it's like, my name's Bikel, we're twins, you were clearly named first. Like...
I agree with that. Just because, like, the Treebeard chapter, I feel like that's when Tolkien, like, decided, like, all right, let me write out the history of these Ent buddies. And, you know, maybe I could see him dropping that hint earlier in the in Fellowship. So that this doesn't come out of fucking nowhere. That there's tree dudes. But I also think in canon, Treebeard tells every new creature that he meets his entire, like, species history.
That could be right. That seems like something he'd do. I mean, I'm of two minds about it, because I think the Ents are the Entwives are necessarily derivative of the Ents.
I would say my angle is that I give him a higher score because if I were to see a Tolkien spin-off tale, I would be far more interested in hearing about the Entwives than the Ents.
Oh, very good perspective. I think that's true. There's more pain on that palette.
Oh yeah, we don't know the full mystery, and you know, I'm one to usually complain that's like, it's good that we don't know the full mystery. Now, really, the Doom of Valyria is more fun as a legend. But to that point, yeah, no, if I had to make a spin-off Lord of the Rings series, that's the type of mystery that's the type of unanswered question that I would zoom in on, and maybe there's a whole real story there. A BFG tale about when they're interacting with humans, and when the the evil forces came, and like how'd that go down fully. I think there's a story there.
10 out of 10, 9 out of 10.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this first installment of Septimber. I hope you've fallen into good times with the Ent buddies.
Yeah.
Join us next outing when we go to an urban environment where sometimes plants are not welcome, and sometimes they will fucking eat you instead of just smashing you. I don't know.